Let's begin. Water is essential for life. It's a resource we all depend on every day. Headlines frequently report on droughts and water shortages. California has faced severe droughts. Cape Town has experienced water crises. The Colorado River's water levels have dropped significantly. These events highlight the challenges of water scarcity in many regions. As a result, people are encouraged to conserve water by taking shorter showers, replacing lawns, and being mindful of their usage. However, water scarcity is influenced by more than just natural factors. Human decisions and policies play a significant role in how water is distributed and managed. Sometimes, access to water can be limited by regulations, infrastructure, or management practices, rather than by an absolute lack of water. Water management involves policy decisions at many levels, from local governments to private companies. These decisions can affect who has access to water and how it is used. This can result in unequal access, where some communities have abundant water while others face shortages. The details of water management are often found in policy documents and legal agreements, which can be complex and difficult to navigate. These policies and agreements have a real impact on how water is shared and used. Systems and decisions shape water availability. Corporations, governments, and infrastructure all play roles in influencing water scarcity. Water challenges are reported, managed, and addressed in different contexts. In some regions, insurance policies and local regulations can influence water use, such as restrictions on draining pools during droughts. These policies are part of the broader system that shapes how water is used and conserved. Lake Mead and Lake Powell are the two largest reservoirs in the United States, both located along the Colorado River. They play a critical role in water storage and supply for millions of people in the southwestern United States, including major cities like Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Los Angeles. In recent years, both reservoirs have experienced historically low water levels due to prolonged drought and increased water demand. These low levels have significant implications for water management, hydroelectric power generation, and the allocation of water resources among states and regions. The management of Lake Mead and Lake Powell is central to ongoing discussions about water scarcity and long-term sustainability in the Colorado River Basin. Okay, so Chapter 1. It starts with something that seems completely unrelated to water: trees. Specifically, shade trees in our cities. You've probably seen this happen in your own town. A park, a median strip, a sidewalk that used to be a cool, shady oasis suddenly gets clear-cut. The official reason? It's always something that sounds responsible. Oh, the roots were damaging the sidewalk. Or my personal favorite, we're preventing fire risk. But the most insidious excuse, the one they whisper in planning meetings, is that they're clearing these areas to deter homeless people from seeking shelter from the sun. Yeah, you heard me. Instead of building shelters or providing resources, the solution is to make public spaces as hostile and unlivable as possible. It's urban design by way of cruelty. But here's where it gets truly wild. When you cut down all those trees, you're not just being cruel, you're actively making the city hotter. It's called the urban heat island effect. Concrete and asphalt absorb and radiate heat, sending temperatures soaring. I'm talking a difference of like 10, 15, even 20 degrees Fahrenheit. So now the entire area is a tinderbox. The grass is crispy, the remaining plants are dying of thirst, and everything is just flammable. The very act of preventing fire risk by removing trees actually creates a much, much greater fire risk for the entire neighborhood. It's like trying to prevent a shark attack by chumming the water. It makes absolutely no sense. And what happens when that inevitable fire breaks out? Suddenly, the city has a full-blown disaster on its hands. The narrative shifts immediately. It's no longer about a cruel anti-homeless policy. Now it's a natural disaster. It's a wildfire crisis. And this crisis becomes the perfect justification for more extreme measures. They need more funding for fire departments, more emergency powers, and, you guessed it, more clear-cutting. They point to the fire they indirectly caused and say, "See, we told you trees were dangerous." It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of destruction. So let's connect the dots. A hostile policy aimed at the most vulnerable creates a dangerous environmental condition. That condition leads to a disaster. And that disaster is then used to justify more of the same harmful policies, all while funneling money into emergency contracts and justifying bigger budgets. They create the disease, then sell you a cure that's just more of the poison. Meanwhile, the water that would have been retained by those trees and healthy soil is gone. It evaporates faster, the ground can't absorb it, and the cycle of manufactured dryness begins, all because they'd rather cut down a tree than care for a human being. Alright, Chapter 2. Let's leave the city and head out to the countryside, where the single biggest user of water is industrial agriculture. And I'm not talking about your friendly neighborhood farmer with a cute red barn. I'm talking about massive, corporate mega farms growing thirsty crops like almonds and alfalfa in the middle of the desert. And they do this using a technique that is basically the equivalent of sticking a giant straw into the earth and drinking a milkshake the size of a lake. It's called unregulated groundwater pumping. Now you'd think there'd be, rules for this. Like you can't just drill a hole and suck up all the water from under your neighbor's house, right? Wrong. In many places, especially in the American West, the laws governing groundwater are ancient and frankly insane. It's a use it or lose it system, or in some cases a whoever has the biggest pump wins system. There are often no limits on how much water these agricultural giants can extract. So while you're being told to install a low-flow toilet, massive corporate farms are pumping millions of gallons a day from shared underground aquifers for free. This water took thousands of years to accumulate, and they're draining it in a few decades. It's like finding a trust fund that's been growing since the Ice Age and blowing it all on avocado toast. The consequences are literally earth-shattering. As these aquifers are drained, the ground above them starts to sink. This is called subsidence. We're talking about vast areas of land, entire valleys, dropping by feet, not inches. This damages infrastructure. Roads, canals, bridges, buildings. It also compacts the earth, so even if it does rain, the ground can't absorb water like it used to, permanently reducing the aquifer's storage capacity. And here's the kicker: scientists have linked this massive-scale water removal to an increased risk of earthquakes. We are pumping so much water that we are literally making the ground we live on less stable. And who pays the price? Not the corporations with the billion-gallon straws. The price is paid by small farmers, rural communities, and low-income households whose wells suddenly run dry. Imagine turning on your tap one morning and nothing comes out forever, because a mega farm a few miles away just sucked the water table down below the reach of your well. Suddenly you have no water. You have to pay to have water trucked in, or drill a new, deeper, more expensive well if you can even afford it. But here's the part that's often hidden. When the land sinks, roads crack, and wells run dry, it's taxpayers, ordinary people, who end up footing the bill for repairs, emergency water deliveries, and new infrastructure. The financial and environmental costs of this water mismanagement don't just disappear, they're passed on to the public. So, the scarcity isn't a mystery. It's a direct transfer of a public resource, groundwater, into private hands, leaving everyone else high and dry, and making us all pay for the damage. The fires from Chapter 1, made worse by poor urban planning, have lasting consequences. The story continues long after the flames are out. For some, the aftermath marks the beginning of new opportunities. This is when disaster capitalism takes hold, rebranding itself as resilience. After a major fire devastates a community, especially a smaller or rural one, residents are left vulnerable. They have lost homes, are traumatized, and seek stability. Large players arrive quickly, including lawyers and developers. Residents are pressured to sign non-disclosure agreements as buyouts for fire-damaged land are offered. These agreements prevent residents from comparing offers, allowing control over the narrative and price. At the same time, larger, often private utility companies see an opportunity. The local water district may be bankrupt and its infrastructure destroyed. Big utilities offer to annex the land into their service area and promise to rebuild. This is presented as a rescue, but is actually a hostile takeover disguised as charity. Once annexation is complete, the utility invests in new infrastructure, pipes, pumps, treatment plants. The cost is passed on to the remaining residents through sharply increased water rates. Water bills can double or triple overnight. Utility companies openly admit that crises are good for business. Executives have stated that events like the COVID-19 pandemic and wildfire recovery create ideal conditions for rate hikes and acquisitions. These changes would be impossible in normal times. Companies profit from disasters, turning tragedy into a business model. A fire, worsened by poor management, destroys a community and enables corporate takeover of public resources. Privatization and consolidation follow, leading to skyrocketing costs for survivors. Access to water becomes a luxury, controlled by a monopoly that profits from disaster. The companies did not prevent the fire, they leveraged it for profit. Water, once a public resource, is now sold back to the community at a premium. In this chapter, we examine how green space laws can be exploited in the United States. Laws requiring American cities to increase public green space are often tied to government funding. Cities must meet green space quotas to qualify for these funds. On paper, this appears beneficial, but developers can use these requirements to push through large projects. They offer to donate land for parks as part of their development proposals. This allows cities to meet quotas and expand their tax base. However, the donated land is often undesirable, such as floodplains or steep hillsides. Developers use the park donation as leverage for zoning changes or annexation. This increases their property value by gaining city services. The result is more development, more strain on water systems, and higher costs for residents. Rural Americans may lose well water independence and face higher water bills. The policy intended to promote environmental health is manipulated for private gain. Ultimately, it enables greenwashed land grabs that benefit a few at the public's expense. So let's put it all together. This isn't a story about a world that's naturally running out of water. This is a story about a system that is deliberately designed to control who gets it and how much they pay. It's engineered dependence. They create the conditions for fire and drought, then sell you the fire department. They drain the aquifers for private profit, then charge for the water trucked in when wells run dry. Access to clean, affordable water becomes conditional. Water is available if it can be purchased from privatized utilities, or if a new development brings infrastructure to a particular area, or if there is investment in large-scale infrastructure to address the crisis. The results are clear. Public wells that have served communities for generations go dry. Independent solutions like rainwater harvesting are sometimes restricted by outdated laws or dismissed due to concerns about water quality. And ancient effective land stewardship practices like the cultural burns that indigenous communities in America have used for millennia to manage landscapes and prevent catastrophic fires are often overlooked or restricted by agencies that later face the consequences of uncontrolled wildfires. At each stage, local control and community resilience can be diminished, replaced by centralized systems. The questions around water management are complex. Policies, new developments, and rate changes all shape the landscape of water access. Each decision about water use and distribution has far-reaching effects. The beneficiaries and impacts of these choices are often subjects of debate. Following the flow of water and money reveals the underlying dynamics. The intersection of economics and water policy shapes outcomes for communities. The narrative of natural scarcity is sometimes used to justify certain policies, while manufactured crises can serve as opportunities for consolidation of control. Local stewardship and community involvement have played important roles in water management. Groundwater protection and monitoring remain vital for long-term sustainability. Policies that balance the needs of people, ecosystems, and economic interests continue to evolve. The water beneath our feet and in our rivers connects us all, across generations and communities. In the end, water remains a shared resource, essential, enduring, and deeply woven into the fabric of life.